Introduction to the supreme realm of fighting through the sky. You often say that revenge is my mission, but you don't know that guarding you is my lifelong destiny rank system. Emperor Dou, Immortal Dou, God Dou, and Immortal Emperor Dou. The end of Chapter 1 is also a beginning. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xiao Yan's figure slowly suspended in the sky above this continent, squinting his eyes as he looked at the exploding beam of light in front of him. After years of calm, his eyes suddenly became fiery, and he murmured, "These decades of cultivation have almost made me forget the feeling of battle." Xiao Yan felt something, and his eyes suddenly opened, staring at the beam of light in front of him with a look of surprise in his eyes. And just as this beam of light exploded, the strong from all directions also rushed to it. In just a short moment, this space gathered countless new generations of strong people. At that time, the two medicinal clan members rescued by Xiao Yan from the void-swallowing Yan had already resumed their bloodline. The ancient tribe has also given birth to many new generations of strong individuals, with Guli and Gu Mei as representatives of the ancient tribe, reaching the strength of Dozong at a young age. Taishu Ancient Dragon is naturally not lagging behind. With such momentum, it is feared that in the future, even more exciting legends will emerge in this world. Gu Yuan and Zhu Kun hovered near Xiao Yan, their eyes fixed on the light pillar and whispered, "Is this a passage to another continent?" The strong people standing around turned their heads at the words, and Xiao Yan frowned slightly before nodding. At this moment, those standing within 1,000 miles of the light pillar felt a strange energy sucking and tugging at the fighting spirit within their bodies. Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan's faces changed slightly, and they quickly gathered their fighting spirit to protect their bodies. They then retreated in succession, their eyes filled with surprise. Only Xiao Yan remained motionless, still looking up so close. "Is this the source energy of the Emperor?" Xiao Yan was taken aback for a moment, and a strong feeling rose from his heart. His palm was desperately grabbing outside the pillar of light, one after another. Gu Yuan, Zhu Kun, and even several other powerful figures looked at Xiao Yan like this, knowing the importance of this thing, and all gathered the source energy of the Emperor that Xiao Yan had captured. In a moment, there was a little bit of the source energy of the Emperor on the Dou Qi continent. With the power of this Emperor, they may advance to the rank of Dou Emperor. At such a distance, Gu Yuan Zhukuan was subjected to extremely strong pressure, which came from this 10,000 zhang beam of light. This rich source of imperial energy was not something that Gu Yuan Zhukuan, a non-Doudi powerhouse, could withstand. Even Xiao Yan's fighting energy trembled slightly. After grabbing a lot of imperial energy, Xiao Yan turned around and hugged Sun'er's slender willow waist, burying his head and shoulders. He gently said, "Don't worry about me, take good care of the child. Sun'er, wait for me to come back." Sun'er's delicate body trembled slightly. Xiao Yan wanted to leave, and it was going to an unknown world. How could she be willing and not worried? But she knew that Xiao Yan was not only her man, but also the strongest in this continent, always pursuing the supreme realm. She reluctantly said softly, "It's not like a domineering continent outside. Be less arrogant and take care of yourself more." Xiao Yan smiled, nodded, and responded with an unpleasant voice in his ear, "Sun'er allowed me but not allowed me." A beautiful shadow appeared in the sky, and with a sudden blue light, it came to Xiao Yan's side, which was clearly the colorful scales. Xiao Yan was taken aback for a moment, then smiled at Siley. He didn't know how to express his emotions well, so he had no choice but to seek help from Sun'er, looking pitifully at her. Looking at Xiao Yan's pitiful expression, Sun'er couldn't help but chuckle. But before Sun'er could speak, Siley said angrily, "Don't let Sun'er persuade me. It's useless. Anyway, I can't let you leave so easily. With such a big family and so many children, Sun'er and I have to take care of them." You think so well." The group of people around could only give a dry laugh as they looked at the couple. Xiao Yan was also helpless. Sun Er quickly leaned over and smiled at Kai Lian, saying, Kai Lian, Xiaoyan's older brother is a big man who likes to wander around. You can let him go, otherwise I'll take care of the children in the future. Upon hearing this, Kai Lian glanced at Sun Er and then at Xiaoyan's pleading expression. She waved her hand helplessly and said, all right. Humph, you'd better come back intact. If you lose one strand of hair, I'll peel off your skin. I don't want a child without a father, otherwise. Humph, let's see how I'll deal with you. Xiaoyan's expression was a bit numb. Why does Kai Li's words sound a bit penetrating? Quickly arching his hand, he joked, thank you very much, wife. Don't worry, I will definitely come back intact. He waved his hand and several light balls appeared in front of Xiaoyan. This is the source energy of the Emperor. With it, you can break through to Doudi. You can use it again when you reach the day of breakthrough. He then waved his hand and shot several light balls at Kai Lian, Sun Er, Gu Yuan, Zhu Kuan, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, after I leave, I hope everyone can help take care of the Xiao clan. Xiaoyan is here to thank everyone. Xiaoyan bowed to the strong men who came to see them off in 4 directions and said, I want to leave. The only thing I'm worried about is the Xiao clan, and there shouldn't be any problems. Nowadays, Xiaoyan has a family full of children and grandchildren. After Xiaoyan advanced to the position of Emperor Dou, due to the activation of his bloodline power, all of Xiaoyan's close relatives were benefited by his bloodline power, and their strength was easily improved like pushing a boat with ease. In just a few years, the Xiao clan developed at an astonishing speed and became the leader of several major families. Of course, this was not without the presence of Xiaoyan, the Yan Emperor. Don't worry, with the presence of an old man, what will happen to the Xiao clan? Gu Yuan looked up and smiled, looking at the young man in black in the distance. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In just a few decades, an ignorant young man suddenly grew into the pinnacle of this continent, which is truly enviable. And me, don't worry, Xiaoyan. We'll leave this to ourselves. Gu Tu and I will break through the Dou Emperor as soon as possible, and then we'll go find you. Zhu Kuan took a step forward and patted his chest, saying, now that they have the power of the Emperor, it's only a matter of time before they advance to the Dou Emperor. Okay, Xiaoyan will definitely come greet you when the time comes. Xiaoyan bowed and thanked him, feeling relieved about the Xiao clan. Daddy. With a coquettish cry, a beautiful shadow rushed into Xiaoyan's arms. It was none other than Xiao Xiao. Now that Xiao Xiao is 11 or 12 years old, she looks like her mother, with a naturally charming face that most people may not be able to bear. After years of growth, Xiao Xiao's strength has indeed made his old friends spew blood. Xiao Xiao's body has the bloodline of his mother's 9-colored swallowing heavenly mang, and coupled with Xiaoyan's Doudi bloodline, his strength has even exploded to that of the 9-star dosha. With Xiao Xiao's growth rate, it is likely that his strength will not be as strong as that of the colored scales in the future. Xiaoyan indulged himself in caressing Xiao Xiao's head and said with a smile, Xiao Xiao, Dad will go back as soon as he goes. You need to keep an eye on the Xiao clan for Dad. Xiaoyan hugged Xiao Xiao away and pinched his nose. Xiao immediately became serious and said seriously like an adult, yes. No problem. Dad, don't worry. Dad, you see that Shizu is also here. After saying that, he pointed behind Xiaoyan. Teacher. Xiaoyan turned his head, and an old figure reflected in his dark eyes. Xiaoyan suddenly became excited. He was an ignorant young man from Wutan City, and it was under the protection of this old figure that he was able to thrive. Without him, Xiaoyan might have been worthless, and even had his soul shattered long ago. How could he have achieved what he has today? Yao Lao smiled contentedly, recalling the young man who still needed his protection. Now he has grown into the hegemon of the Duki continent, and he is truly moved. Be more careful yourself, the teacher can't help you much now. But when you go out and make a name for yourself, let me go with you to see and see, Yao Lao laughed. Xiao Yan smiled, the teacher is still the same as before. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Yan shot several pills and light balls at the medicine elder and slowly said, I will strictly follow my master's teachings. Teacher, this is my disciple's filial piety to you. I wish you a speedy promotion to the Dou Emperor. This is the 9th grade golden pill specially prepared by Xiao Yan for the medicine elder over the years, as well as the Emperor's source qi that he has just obtained. Yao Lao looked at the item in his hand, with a flicker in his eyes. Zhuku and Gu Yuan looked at the several pills in Yao Lao's hand that shimmered with gold, and couldn't help but feel envious. These 9-grade golden pills are probably unmatched in the Duki continent, because they have always been refined by the powerful Dou Emperor and cannot be compared to ordinary golden pills. Alright, you go ahead and be more careful yourself. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net. Yao Lao nodded. The teacher's kindness to his disciples is unforgettable to Xiao Yan. Please accept his disciples' worship. Xiao Yan immediately knelt down and made a moving sound, as if the world was moved by it. Xiao Yan knocked his head heavily, his eyes full of gratitude, reminiscing about the past. How could he remain unmoved? Xiao Yan slowly stood up, without further ado. His figure, like a meteor-like light, pierced through the sky and rushed towards the passage, disappearing into the space between heaven and earth. However, behind him came the sound of a grand farewell. Farewell to Emperor Yan. Long live Emperor Yan. In the Duki continent, Xiao Yan is a legend, and his deeds will be passed down from generation to generation, passing down for eternity. The blue pillar of light is filled with violent energy, even strong warriors like Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan, who are at the peak of the Holy Spirit, can feel the power of the pillar of light thousands of miles away. If you enter, you may immediately be crushed by the violent energy in the pillar of light. Nowadays, only Xiao Yan is likely to have such power to enter, and even Xiao Yan is not sure what will happen if he enters. Emperor Yan, the strongest of the Duki continent, dare not be careless, which shows how powerful this pillar of light is. Xiao Yan stepped on the void and stepped directly into the pillar of light, which then disappeared onto this continent. As a person who once saved the Duki continent, Xiao Yan has already held a sacred position in the hearts of the strong, and everyone can't help but worry about him. After all, it is an unknown space, and no one knows what will happen. Why hasn't there been a Doudi left on this Duki continent? Can it be said that with the passage of time, ancient Doudi also fell due to the erosion of time? Or are they all taken away from this world like Xiao Yan? This is a mystery that no one knows. Chapter 2. Doudi Continent, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Yan's figure appeared in a dark void. In this channel space, there were tremendous energy fluctuations and a kind of pressure that could move the Doudi capital. For a moment, even Xiao Yan's fighting spirit became somewhat chaotic. Xiao Yan dared not be careless and quickly sat cross-legged, stimulating his fighting spirit to resist. A black shadow sat cross-legged in the void. The energy of this channel far exceeded Xiao Yan's imagination, and Xiao Yan's figure began to become extremely distorted. Emperor Dou is already the supreme realm on the Douqi continent. Nowadays, Xiao Yan's Douqi still appears chaotic in his body. It can be imagined how terrifying this energy is. It is enough to easily tear apart the Douxing powerhouse, and there is no possibility of survival for non-Emperor Dou. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged like this, relying on the resistance of the strange fire. After several days of breathing adjustment, Xiao Yan's breath slowly stabilized in this space, and it took him an unknown amount of time to slowly open his eyes. Whew! Xiao Yan took a deep breath. This space is indeed extraordinary. After this period of resistance, Xiao Yan felt a subtle increase in his fighting spirit. This subtle increase made him aware of a situation, which is that in this space, the Dou Emperor will no longer be the peak of strength, and he will start a long and thorny journey. This passage looks boundless, as if it has no end. Surrounded by it, it is like a starry world, emitting brilliant and sparkling starlight. This kind of environment can easily make people lose their minds, but of course, how could Xiao Yan, who is a strong fighter for the emperor, be disturbed by the state of mind and the power of the emperor's soul? However, Xiao Yan still knew the danger of this passage and dared not take it lightly. He opened his bones and wings, and colorful flames surrounded him, slowly flying in this space. There is only one star in this space, completely losing the concept of time. Xiao Yan didn't know how long he had flown, but with his current strength as the Emperor Dou, his flying speed had slowed down several times in this place, which surprised Xiao Yan greatly. At the same time, Xiao Yan also realized that the more he flew forward, the stronger the imperial energy became, which convinced him that this space had an end. So, Xiao Yan flew tirelessly. The endless space is devoid of any sound, and all that can be heard at any moment is the sound of one's own wings whistling. One word, stillness, terrifying stillness, really gives people a feeling of impending collapse. However, after a long flight, Xiao Yan has become accustomed to this tranquility. I don't know how long this flight lasted, but suddenly, Xiao Yan suddenly opened his eyes and his figure quickly shot back, cursing inwardly, "Damn it! What is this?" As soon as he finished cursing, whoosh! Xiao Yan could clearly hear a huge gust of wind rushing towards him. The quiet space suddenly became violent, and a creature with a body size of 100 meters roared towards him. This kind of creature Xiao Yan has never seen before, and its huge size is chilling. What made Xiao Yan feel the most terrifying was that this unknown creature had a stronger aura than himself, which was unimaginable to Xiao Yan. If this thing were placed on the Doudi continent, the entire continent would probably be destroyed by it. Although Xiao Yan felt a sense of oppression on his breath, he did not feel any fear. After stabilizing his figure, a hint of anger flashed between his eyebrows. "New Emperor Dou, jie, the current food and drink are pretty good." The rough voice of an unknown creature echoed in this quiet space. "Oh. Humph. It's not certain who's the one who drinks and dishes." Xiao Yan snorted coldly. He didn't know what kind of monster was in front of him. After advancing to the Doudi, he had not fought for decades, but at this moment, his fighting cells seemed to be awakened all over his body. Xiao Yan in the sky looked fearlessly at the huge object, his fingerprints changing. For a moment, the strange flames around him turned into a rolling sea of fire, and then rushed into Xiao Yan's body at an extremely fast speed. After these rolling red inflammations surged into Xiao Yan's body, his body also rapidly expanded under the influx of countless flames, and in the midst of expansion, brilliant flames quickly roared out of Xiao Yan's pores, transforming into dragon-like flames, circling around him. Indeed, he has some skills and is truly the only Emperor Dou to reappear in 1,000 years, but he is still a bit short of fighting against this emperor. Seeing the dazzling flames flying all over Xiao Yan, a look of surprise flashed through the eyes of the massive creature. "I want to see how much skill you have under your gorgeous appearance," sneered as the creature's huge body suddenly moved, carrying the surrounding stars. Its huge tail whizzed directly towards Xiao Yan, causing the entire space to fluctuate faintly for a moment. Such a terrifying wind was probably far behind that of the sole heavenly emperor. Humph. Seeing the creature attacking head-on, Xiao Yan only let out a cold snort and did not dodge. He also threw a punch. At this moment, Xiao Yan had transformed into the body of the Dou Emperor, and his body was also extremely large. The dazzling fire dragon wrapped around him was fiercely smashed out along with the fist wind. Bang! Chapter 3 Doudi Continent, 2. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Two terrifying forces collided together, and the terrifying wind even stirred up some ripples in the surrounding space. A hint of surprise flashed in the eyes of the creature again. He did not expect that a newly arrived Doudi in this space could receive its attack without any harm. A flash of anger flashed in the eyes of the creature, preparing to launch another attack. Suddenly, a voice sounded from behind each person and beast. Stop! No fighting is allowed within the torn city, please leave quickly. A cold shout suddenly sounded in this space, and then rippled like ripples in the water. Humph, kid, you're lucky. If I meet you again next time, you probably won't be so lucky. The creature reluctantly glanced at Xiao Yan and snorted, then the light shook and disappeared into this space. Xiao Yan's towering body slowly changed back, and when he turned around, he saw a man in armor standing behind him. Thank you, Senior. Xiao Yan arched his hand and thanked him. If this person doesn't come, he will have another bloody battle today. Xiao Yan knew from the blow just now that the creature didn't use all its strength. To be honest, Xiao Yan didn't have much confidence. You don't need to thank me. This is my job. Are you the new Doudi? The armored man smiled up and asked softly. Xiao Yan nodded lightly, not hiding anything, but he had some doubts in his heart. How did this armored person know about him? Well, you are the person Ming Emperor is looking for. Let's go, I'll take you to tear apart the city. With Xiao Yan's recognition, the armored man no longer asked more questions. Without waiting for Xiao Yan, he turned around and flew away. And Xiao Yan stood still, is there anyone here to pick me up? Xiao Yan couldn't help but ask himself, is there anyone here who knows him? Senior, I apologize for your audacity. How did you know the whereabouts of the younger generation? The armored man accurately found himself and insisted that he was the person the Ming Emperor was looking for, which greatly puzzled Xiao Yan. Hee, kid, you're quite careful. I know everything within 1,000 miles of tearing apart the city, isn't it easy to find you? As for why I believe it's you, because you're the only one in this passage for 1,000 years, and there's also the space beast that fought with you just now. The armored man heard Xiao Yan ask and stopped slowly. Xiao Yan was also taken aback by the words of the armored man. The induction of the soul power of his own imperial realm in this space was only 100 miles, and the middle-aged man in armor in front of him could detect 1,000 miles. Indeed, the aura emanating from the armored man is also evident, and his strength is by no means comparable to his own. Xiao Yan nodded, although he still had some doubts. In this distant and hopeless space, it was better to finally meet someone to lead the way than to wander aimlessly. There was no other choice but to trust the person in front of him for the time being. Xiao Yan stopped speaking and followed behind the armored man, flying towards the distance at an extremely fast speed. At this point, Xiao Yan's speed had reached its extreme, and he was still unable to catch up with the armored man. Fortunately, it was not far away. After more than 10 minutes, a small city appeared in front of Xiao Yan. From above, Xiao Yan could clearly see the entire torn city, bustling with people coming and going. The entire city is made up of a blue stone, with a tall tower standing in the middle. At the top of the tower, there is a faint flame, which gives a mysterious feeling when viewed from afar. It must be the energy that supports this city. Unexpectedly, there would be such a city here. Xiao Yan was somewhat surprised. Maintaining a city in the cracks of space probably requires a lot of energy as support. Those who can open up a city in the cracks of space will naturally be strong and resounding. This is the tearing city, let me go in, the armored man said softly. The two of them swooped down and finally landed on the quaint stone road, tearing apart the noisy sounds of the city from the Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Suddenly, the sound rushed into Xiao Yan's ears. There were people riding various warcraft beasts on the roadside, wearing gorgeous armor, various stalls, and selling many rare foreign objects, many of whom were countless, making Xiao Yan dizzy. Xiao Yan casually checked the breath of a few people and couldn't help but shudder. There was no breath that was several times or even hundreds of times stronger than him. Following the armored man in a direction, Xiao Yan had already seen an old man standing dozens of meters away with his hands down and smiling at him. Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback, thinking that the person coming to pick him up would be from the Shao clan in this space. However, his bloodline had no connection at all, and he suddenly became somewhat alert. Xiao Yan always maintains a sense of caution toward strangers. Xiao Yan walked slowly towards the old man with the armored man. As he approached, the old man looked at the armored man and arched his hand, saying, "Thank you very much for the help of Hua Tao's guard. Since the man has arrived, I will take him back to the valley and not disturb your work." Upon hearing the old man's words, Xiao Yan learned that the man in armor was named Hua Tao, who seemed to be a guard of this torn city, but he was not surprised. Hua Tao smiled and said he didn't need to leave. After Hua Tao's figure disappeared, the old man looked at Xiao Yan and shouted, "Kid, come with me." Xiao Yan listened to the old man's shout and looked at the unfamiliar and somewhat weathered face in front of him. He couldn't help but be slightly stunned, feeling a bit puzzled. What is this person related to him? Who are you? How do you know I'm coming? I don't know you, why are you waiting for me here? Why do I have to go with you? A lot of doubts asked the old man. Kid, you should be what old Shao said, the only Doudi in the Duki continent for thousands of years, right? Chapter 4. Doudi Continent, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If there were no one else, it would be me, Xiao Yan nodded without denying. He is indeed the only Doudi on the Duki continent to advance after 1,000 years. The old man saw Xiao Yan nodding, and a smile surged on his face. Indeed, it's you. It seems that old Xiao has a good sense, a member of the Xiao clan. This damn old man Xiao is really troublesome. His own family went to gamble and didn't come to pick him up, but he asked me to come. Unfortunately, you are still so strange. If it weren't for Zhao's repeated reminders, I wouldn't have bothered to care about you. The old man muttered a few more words. Wait, what did you just say? Xiao clan. Xiao old man. Is he my ancestor? My ancestor is still there. Senior, can you take me to see my ancestor immediately? The old man Xiao, as Xiao Yan predicted, should be his own ancestor. Xiao Yan didn't expect that there were still people of the Xiao clan here, and his heart couldn't help but feel a little excited. The old man pursed his lips and said, "Nonsense. It was your ancestor who asked me to pick you up. I want to see your ancestor, right? Then let's go with me. It's getting late, you follow me closely." The old man gave Xiao Yan a white glance, waved his sleeve and robe, and a spatial crack tore open. Then he crawled in, and Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment before diving into the crack. In just a blink of an eye, the two of them emerged from the crack, and a strong ancient aura rushed towards them. As soon as Xiao Yan walked out of the crack in the space, he was amazed. The imperial energy here was even stronger than the passage space. He leaned down and was immediately shocked by the scene before him. Surrounded by dense forests, the dense trees are completely different from those on the Duki continent. The roots are all towering trees, with no visible canopy, blocking the sky and sun, like towering pillars connecting the sky and the earth, supporting the sky from collapsing. And around Xiao Yan, the ground was filled with medicinal herbs and rare flowers, full of spiritual energy and rich medicinal fragrance, making Xiao Yan's eyes sparkle with greed. These medicinal herbs and rare flowers and herbs, most of which Xiao Yan had never seen before, were actually very rare and rare medicinal herbs on the Duki continent. However, here they are everywhere, it can be seen everywhere. This is valuable but not marketable in the Duki continent, not to mention how difficult it is to find and collect. Even if it exists, it is cherished by various forces, not to mention those that even Xiao Yan has never seen before. They are all treasures. As a pharmacist, and also a 9th-grade pharmacist, can you not be excited about everything in front of you? Xiao Yan immediately hand collect. Why are you picking these weeds? The old man glanced at the herb in Xiao Yan's hand. Xiao Yan was momentarily stunned. Weeds. These medicinal herbs are priceless in the Duki continent, but in the eyes of the elderly, they are just a bunch of weeds. The old man shook his head and said, "I didn't see it. Let's go, kid." Xiao Yan didn't say anything, just silently put away the medicinal herbs. "What is this?" Xiao Yan saw a purple crystal not far away. With a movement of his body, he directly took out the crystal, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. This strength is even stronger than the best material on the Duki continent. "Hey, kid, let's go. What's the use of that broken stone?" The old man shouted angrily. Xiao Yan looked up and glanced at the old man floating in the air. It seemed that in the old man's eyes, everything was scrap metal. Xiao Yan didn't say much and quickly withdrew to follow the old man. Surrounded by a forest of trees and trees, looking boundless, it is estimated that this forest is several hundred times larger than the Warcraft Mountains. This forest is located in the Tianming Mountains, occupying an extremely vast territory. In the Tianming mountain range, towering mountain ranges continuously connect with each other, directly penetrating the entire forest and dividing it into two different regions. After tens of thousands of years of reproduction and changes, almost everything in this forest has life generally. Almost no one dares to go deep, let alone walk alone in this forest. If one doesn't pay attention, even the Doudi powerhouse will fall into this mysterious forest. And Xiao Yan and the others are just on the periphery. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with doubts and curiosity about this unknown region, and the power of his soul surged out of his eyebrows, spreading throughout the entire forest. The power of the soul in the Imperial realm, this kid is not simple, he's a bit interesting. The old man was puzzled and somewhat surprised. When Xiao Yan unleashed his soul power, the old man immediately sensed the soul power of Xiao Yan's Imperial realm. Emperor realm, the Emperor realm is not only the power of the soul, but also a state of mind. It is not the Dou Emperor who possesses the soul power of the Emperor realm, and even he has not stepped into the Emperor realm. Unexpectedly, this kid in front of him is actually the soul power of the Emperor realm. How could he not be surprised? Two figures swiftly flew towards the distance, and the old man looked at Xiao Yan and said, "Put away your soul power. It's very dangerous here. I know you're curious. Alright, let me let you know about this continent first." As he spoke, a beam of light flashed through his fingers, directly shooting into Xiao Yan's mind. A huge amount of information immediately flooded into Xiao Yan's mind. Slowly, Xiao Yan began to have a vague understanding of this continent. This is a world that moves the Doudi capital. That's right, this is the Doudi continent. Like the Duki continent, there are no different types of magic, and Duki remains the only main theme on the continent. This is a world that belongs exclusively to the Dou Emperor powerhouses. Only Dou Emperor powerhouses can survive and grow in this space. Perhaps Dou Emperor is in Douqi continent is the pinnacle of strength, but in Doudi continent, Doudi is only the most basic existence, and with the efforts of countless generations of Doudi, there has been a presence that surpasses Doudi. Although Emperor Dou was a powerful force in the Duki continent, destroying the heavens and earth, his power seemed to be limited on this continent. Even if Xiao Yan's power goes to destroy heaven and earth here, he cannot exert 1/10 of the fighting spirit on the continent. The space here is really perfect, even with the power of Emperor Dou quantity will also be suppressed by it, and naturally, people's power is constantly evolving to resist the limitations of this space. Through the induction and statistics of countless generations of powerful individuals, a new hierarchical system has emerged on this Doudi continent. From low to high, Doudi is divided into 9 stars, from 1 star to 9 stars. Each star is divided into 4 stages. Early, middle, late, and peak, and each stage is further divided into 4 levels. Primary, intermediate, advanced, and peak. 9 stars above is the existence that transcends the Dou Emperor, Dou Xian. Only one person in the entire Dou Emperor continent has achieved this, and he is the creator of this space. On top of Dou Xian, according to rumors from the mainland, there are also Doshan and the Immortal Emperor. No one knows if it's true or not. Chapter 5. Doudi Continent, 4. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On this continent, 9 out of 10 people are just one-star emperor, with a difference of only 1 star, which is like an insurmountable abyss. Each star may take you thousands of years of cultivation to reach. Every time you upgrade, there will be an imperial calamity. Once you pass the imperial calamity, the upgrade will be successful. Once you fail, the severe will fall, while the minor will be seriously injured. Generally speaking, it takes an ordinary person 1,000 years to ascend from 1 star to 2 stars, 4,000 years to ascend from 2 stars to 3 stars, 10,000 years to ascend from 3 stars to 4 stars, and 10,000 years to ascend from 4 stars to 5 stars. All rely on their respective creations. Above the 5 stars, there are rare and legendary beings in the entire Doudi continent. It can be imagined how difficult it is to surpass Doudi. But there is also an exception, which is the advance of imperial tribulation. That is to say, if you bring luck and opportunities between each star, you can encounter the imperial calamity in advance, but this possibility is too small. In the history of the entire Doudi continent for tens of thousands of years, there are only dozens of people who rely on the early arrival of the imperial calamity to improve their level. Even more difficult is that even when encountering imperial tribulations in advance, it may not be possible for ordinary people to pass. The advance imperial tribulation will generate a kind of emperor demon. Without the help of a strong person, if one is alone, no one will be able to pass through. So most people still work diligently through thousands of years of practice to improve themselves. Of course, there are also cultivators who quickly improve with their unique cultivation methods. Due to the extreme evolution of fighting spirit, many alternative cultivators have emerged outside the main line of fighting spirit. For example, the Demon Clan is a new cultivation nation, but the demon cultivators are still despised by the world because they use inhumane practices. Refining methods naturally makes the mainland less peaceful. The territory of Doudi continent is extremely vast, and there are also many unknown Warcraft families and various mysterious families. Due to family reasons, when the family perishes, they may hide the secret scripts they have created in their lifetime somewhere, waiting for those who are destined to take them. In the Doudi continent, there are also a few strong individuals who rely on this adventure to advance themselves. In the world of Doudi continent is not the only interface. It can be said that this world is like a galaxy, composed of many planets, and Doudi continent is just one of them. Therefore, this world gathers Doudi from various spatial interfaces, except for Doudi continent, which has already been depleted. In addition to the source energy of the Emperor, there are still new Doudi born on different interfaces, coming to this world where Doudi gathers, constantly providing fresh blood and power for this world. In short, this is a continent full of miracles and the creation of miracles. At this time, the place where Xiao Yan was located was called Dizhou, similar to the Gamma Empire on Doudi continent. However, the size of its territory was incomparable to even the busiest Zhongzhou on Doudi continent. The information also includes introductions from the elderly. The old man's name is Guan Fongming, and people call him Emperor Ming. His strength is the 3-star Dou Emperor, and he is one of the best among the strong in the imperial prefecture. Xiao Yan had just learned all the information when suddenly, Emperor Ming pushed Xiao Yan and stood in front of him, frowning and drinking. "Be careful." A sharp palm wind mixed with the sound of breaking wind came straight towards Ming Emperor, and a hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. The powerful aura of the 3-star Dou Emperor suddenly erupted, and the handle was a palm, directly resolving the sudden attack. Xiao Yan stabilized his breath for a moment, and the power of his soul swept across all directions. Under the power of the soul in the imperial realm, there was no creature that could evade Xiao Yan's search. Xiao Yan frowned and rushed forward without fear. Emperor Ming rushed up without saying a word to Xiao Yan, and his face changed slightly. "This kid, he's so brave," he said. Emperor Ming murmured, and Xiao Yan's figure had already become huge, surrounded by several fire dragons. Xiao Yan's huge palm directly hit the trees under him, and soon, several figures flew out in a somewhat disheveled manner, suspended in front of Xiao Yan and the others. Obviously, they did not expect Xiao Yan to strike so quickly. Behind Xiao Yan's towering body, the Ming Emperor couldn't help but laugh a few times as he watched Xiao Yan's attack. "Ha, you are indeed a member of the Xiao clan, always so belligerent. The two young men behind you, come out." As soon as the Ming Emperor finished speaking, two people wearing the same attire as the Ming Emperor appeared behind him, their breath full of energy far above Xiao Yan. Emperor Ming looked at the two people behind him and said angrily, "You two little guys were originally planning to come out and try your skills, but you were caught first. Ha, come on, let me see who dares to be so bold. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com." Xiao Yan couldn't help but be surprised as he looked at the two people behind him. He was actually following the two people behind him, but he didn't feel it at all. This made Xiao Yan suddenly have many feelings. On this continent, he was no longer the strongest, but became very weak. Helplessly, he had to shake his head and smile bitterly, then even look at his eyes. A few people suddenly attacked earlier. "Isn't this Mr. Ying? Are you getting bolder now? Why, I'm here and you also want to ambush us." Among the several figures, the oldest one took a step forward and arched his hand at Emperor Ming, saying, "Emperor Ming, we have no intention of sneaking an attack on you. We are only interested in this kid, and we hope Emperor Ming can make it convenient for us to take this kid with us." After speaking, he pointed to Xiao Yan with his finger. "Do you want to snatch him? Don't blame me for not telling you. This kid is from the Xiao family, and it's not something you can provoke. If the Xiao family comes knocking on him in the future, I'm afraid your Yimo sect won't be able to make ends meet. Moreover, Ying, you dare to challenge me with 5 small 2-star Dou emperors." Emperor Ming calmly looked at several disheveled figures ahead. The old man named Yi Ying's face changed slightly, and it was evident that he still had some reservations about the Xiao clan. He took a step forward and said incredulously, "Oh. Is that right? He belongs to the Xiao clan. Are you taking the Xiao clan with you? You're obviously fooling me, right? Besides, what about the 2-star Dou emperor? This kid is just the 1-star Dou emperor. Why don't you give him to us, Ming, and everyone is safe? How about that?" Emperor Ming glared and exclaimed, "Give it to your sister, please climb away from me. Your Yimo sect is not a match for my Tianming Valley." Upon hearing this, Yi Ying immediately became furious and said, "Humph, even if you're not an opponent, you have to fight. This kid has a heavenly fire in his body, and even if he tries hard, he will fight back. Brothers, take action." Chapter 6 Doudi Continent, 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Skyfire. The heavenly fire in their mouths may be the abnormal fire in their own bodies. It seems that the abnormal fire in their bodies has already been discovered by these people. Xiao Yan's eyebrows and eyes tightened, and he didn't expect these people to quickly detect the existence of his abnormal fire. "I didn't expect you to have heavenly fire, kid. Be careful, kid," Emperor Ming said softly. Xiao Yan did not show any signs of retreat. On the contrary, his hand trembled with light, and he held a colorful ruler in Xiao Yan's hand. The heavenly fire eternal ancient ruler. This is the heavenly fire eternal ancient ruler. I didn't expect this kid to understand such weapons. The people around were immediately shocked. It seemed that he had mistaken the strange fire on his body for some kind of heavenly fire again. Xiao Yan rushed forward without saying a word, because he felt the killing intent on several people, so he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Ming Yan Palm. The two people following behind Emperor Ming seemed to be losing their temper. One of them shouted loudly, and a huge golden handprint quickly formed in the air. Bang! With a palm strike, the other person was immediately beaten to vomit blood and quickly retreated. Xiao Yan also directly hit them, causing them to retreat in a row. The three of them joined forces and only managed to repel a few people in a short moment, without exerting all their strength. It seemed that they were all afraid of the Ming Emperor standing behind Xiao Yan with his hands down. Haha, the name of heavenly fire is indeed true. Today, it really broadened my horizons. Emperor Ming did not take action, but looked up at Xiao Yan's battle with a smile on his face and immediately smiled. The old man named Yi Ying's face looked a bit ugly. Now that the other party suddenly had two 2-star Dou emperors, along with Ming Emperor, who had the strength of 3-star Dou emperors, and Xiao Yan, whose strength was much stronger than he had expected, it was obvious that he had no chance of winning on his side. Humph. We'll all grab the heavenly fire sooner or later, kid. We'll see each other later. Let's go. Yi Ying, the old man, snorted coldly. Although he had several 2-star Dou emperors, he saw a 3-star Dou emperor sitting in front of him, and no matter what they said, it was not something they could resist. Yi Ying knew he couldn't compete with him, so he had to issue a withdrawal order. Disappeared in space. Waiting at any time. Xiao Yan had a smile on his face and showed no fear of the harsh words of the old man Yi Ying. Seeing a few people leave, Xiao Yan slowly recovered. This battle was obviously not enjoyable. At this moment, Emperor Ming stood behind a few people with his hands behind his back and smiled at the two people who suddenly appeared, saying, "You two kids, following me all the time is an opportunity to find your hands." The two of them chuckled foolishly in front of Emperor Ming. Emperor Ming pointed to Xiao Yan and introduced him to the two people behind him, saying, "This is the only Dou emperor in the Duki continent for 1,000 years. Xiao Yan, a member of the Xiao clan," and then pointed to the two people and introduced him, "Xiao Yan, these two are the most proud disciples of our valley. They have just advanced to the 2-star Dou emperor, and the one with a cold face is the eldest disciple Yunfeng. The one with a simple appearance is the second disciple Xiong Yuan. I originally wanted to show off my skills with you, but I didn't expect you to take the lead. Hee, come on, everyone knows each other." Xiao Yan arched his hand and said, "See you two seniors." Yunfeng just waved his hand, while Xiong Yuan was much more enthusiastic. He picked up Xiao Yan's hand and smiled, "Xiao Yan, you don't need to be polite." Xiao Yan nodded and thank you, senior. The person who appears in front of Xiao Yan now is not his senior. Even the worst of him must be called a senior, after all, he is the only Doudi in 1,000 years, so his seniority is also the lowest. In addition, his strength is not as good as that of others, and he is also highly respected on this continent. Emperor Ming nodded and immediately said, "Xiao Yan, it seems that your whereabouts have been exposed. We need to go back quickly to avoid causing more unnecessary trouble." At the moment when those few people appeared, Xiao Yan began to doubt what kind of power the other party was and how quickly and accurately they could know their whereabouts. Why do they care so much about themselves, such a small 1-star emperor? Who exactly leaked their whereabouts? During Xiao Yan's contemplation, Emperor Ming grabbed Xiao Yan's shoulder and a strange stone flashed in his hand. The light shook and the four of them disappeared into the sky above this forest. Chapter 7. Tianming Valley, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianming Valley is located at the top of a mountain called Demai Mountain. Looking down from a high altitude, clouds and smoke surround it, and a rainbow hangs in the air. The mountain peak is divided into several layers, including the star platform, the competition field, the promotion hall, and the Douji Palace, each of which has its own unique scenery. These four magnificent buildings are undoubtedly the most magnificent in Tianming Valley, while other ordinary houses also have their own unique features. The houses are in a round shape, and each house there is a strange formation that can be seen to assist in cultivation, which is vastly different from those on the Duki continent. Even ancient tribes have never had such luxurious buildings. The people in Tianming Valley come and go, and there is a constant sound of sparring. At this moment, at the top of the mountain peak in Tianming Valley, a few strands of blue light flashed past, and the figures of Xiao Yan and others suddenly appeared above the peak. As soon as they appeared, someone rushed towards them, obviously afraid of any enemy invasion. There are 5 major forces in Dizhou, namely the Xiao tribe, Tianming Valley, Extermination, Fantasy Demon tribe, and Yimo sect. These 5 major forces each occupy one side. Except for the good relationship between the Xiao clan and Tianming Valley, the other forces are fiercely competing for resources, and their relationship is naturally not very harmonious. Therefore, protective measures cannot be relaxed. Farewell to our ancestors. The group fixed their eyes and saw that the person who came was Emperor Ming. They immediately bent down to pay their respects. Emperor Ming waved his hand, indicating that they didn't need to be too polite. He immediately asked, "Has anything happened in the valley while I'm out?" It seems that several major forces have been on the verge of action recently. When they just returned, the Yimo sect openly took action. It's probably not that simple. Either it's aimed at Xiao Yan, or the real purpose is to come to Tianming Valley, which inevitably worries Emperor Ming. During the days when our ancestors left, there were indeed conflicts with some forces, but fortunately, the opposing forces were not very strong. With the help of Elder Xiao, these forces were eventually repelled, with the participation of 2 major forces. The Yimo sect and the Phantom Demon clan. The rest were small factions from the mining source, but they did not pose any threat. A few people stood up, and among the 3 men, a man in the middle bowed and reported. Upon hearing the 2 major forces of the Yimo cult and the Phantom Demon clan, Emperor Ming furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment before saying to Xiong Yuan standing behind him, "Xiong Yuan, take Xiao Yan to visit first, and I will handle some matters." Xiong Yuan nodded, and Emperor Ming left with the 3 of them, and Yun Feng behind him also left one after another. "Xiao Yan, let's go. I'll take you to visit Tianming Valley." Xiong Yuan smiled foolishly and said to Xiao Yan, who was still looking around. Standing here, Xiao Yan had a clear view of the entire Tianma mountain range. A mountain range composed of countless peaks, winding and swirling, looked like a bone dragon in the air, full of a domineering aura. Thank you, Senior Xiong Yuan. Xiao Yanxie said, and he also wanted to see how the Doudi continent was different from the Duki continent. Xiong Yuan nodded with a smile and said, "If Brother Xiao Yan doesn't mind, then we should be brothers. It's strange to hear from seniors." Xiong Yuan said heartily, but he was very friendly and took Xiao Yan into the valley. In the valley, a few rays of sunshine fall, and the beautiful scenery of Tianming Valley is even more evident. Xiong Yuan walked slowly with Xiao Yan, and people around him cast strange gazes. The disciples of Tianming Valley were all wearing the same clothes, and Xiao Yan's unconventional clothes naturally caught the attention of many people. However, with Xiong Yuan by his side, no one went to inquire. From time to time, some people respectfully saluted and greeted Xiong Yuan, because Xiong Yuan's cheerful personality was also popular in the valley. In the blink of an eye, we arrived at a place called Xingqian Terrace. The structure of the star platform surprised Xiao Yan greatly. A small mountain-like star platform was suspended in the air, with an extremely large area, and many people came and went from time to time. Xiong Yuan looked at Xiao Yan's surprised expression and smiled, but he wasn't surprised much. Thinking of his unremarkable appearance when he came back, a hint of nostalgia ignited in his heart. "Let's go, I'll take you up and take a look," Xiong Yuan said softly, his figure slowly rising. Xiao Yan also followed behind and slowly flew up. Then, what caught the eye was countless people sitting in it, each emitting a dazzling light. Countless powerful breath rushed towards him, and the entire star platform rippled like ripples on the water surface. In each ripple, there were many cultivators sitting in it, and their bodies emitted dazzling light. Xiao Yan was somewhat shocked. He was the first to see such a huge scale of cultivation, and I remember that there was never such a lineup in the medicine refining competition back then. "It's really terrifying," Xiao Yan smiled and said, his gaze quickly sweeping over before finally stopping under a stone tablet. The three dazzling characters, starry platform, caught Xiao Yan's eye. Then, as Xiong Yuan stepped into the starry platform, a strange energy flooded in, causing his fighting spirit to fluctuate slightly with an increase. Chapter 8. Tianming Valley, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The star platform is a place for disciples to practice in the Tianming Valley, and each disciple has their own territory. Outsiders are not allowed to enter easily. Once you enter, it will disturb the cultivators and naturally cause disputes. Of course, if your strength is enough to overpower the cultivators, no one dares to gossip. The star platform goes from outside to inside, and the stronger the strength, the more you go inside. It is also an important building in the Tianming Valley, right? Xiong Yuan introduced to Xiao Yan. The star platform is divided into 12 layers, and even Emperor Ming dare not stay much in the center. Generally, it takes up to an hour to come out, indicating how terrifying the energy in the innermost layer is. Xiao Yan and his team are in the outermost layer, but they have not been affected by anything. Brother Xiong Yuan, can you give me some guidance? I don't quite understand this fighting technique. Just as Xiao Yan followed Xiong Yuan and looked at the surrounding scenery, a young man with a helpless face walked towards Xiao Yan and the others. With Xiong Yuan's temperament, he naturally won't refuse. In Tianming Valley, anyone who has no hostile relationship with Xiong Yuan likes to look for him. Since Xiong Yuan advanced to the two-star emperor, those who used to be somewhat dissatisfied with him have also gained some respect. Xiong Yuan smiled and took the scroll from the young man's hand. Without hesitation, he looked at it and then demonstrated it to the young man, patiently explaining the key points. Xiao Yan looked at Xiong Yuan and couldn't help but smile. He really liked Xiong Yuan's temperament in his heart. With Xiong Yuan's guidance, Xiao Yan walked alone to watch the scenery of the starry platform. Hey, kid, this is my territory. Get out of here and come one step closer, I'll break your leg. Xiao Yan walked, not paying attention to where he stood. A young man with a fierce expression saw Xiao Yan walking into his cultivation area, looking left and right, and roared angrily. This young man's name is Wu Yong, and he is known for his dominance and his strength is extremely strong. He has reached the middle stage of the one-star Dou Emperor, and according to his estimation, he will be able to advance to the two-star Dou Emperor in a few hundred years. The two-star Dou Emperor also holds a considerable position in the clan. Xiao Yan didn't react much to such insults, but instead seemed to have not heard them. Xiao Yan knew that he had entered someone else's cultivation territory. Thinking of Xiong Yuan's introduction earlier, he turned around and was about to leave. Just as Xiao Yan was about to leave, the young man sitting in the distance suddenly stood up, with a hint of evil energy on his face. He looked at Xiao Yan's back and said coldly, "Didn't you hear what I said?" Xiao Yan heard the young man's words and slowly turned around. The breath of this young man cannot escape the exploration of the soul power of Emperor Xiao Yan's realm. According to the information passed to him by Emperor Ming, this young man should be in the middle stage of the star Dou Emperor, Xiao Yan secretly guessed in his heart. Why should I listen to you? Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and said with an unchanged expression. The young man couldn't help but be taken aback as he looked at Xiao Yan's calm expression. In Tianming Valley, who would be so calm when he called out like this? A strange expression appeared at the corner of the young man's mouth, and he wanted to see what kind of power the black-clad young man in front of him had to give him the confidence to speak to him. You're quite aggressive, new here, aren't you? You're still so stubborn when you break into my territory. It looks very powerful. You arrogant kid, do you have the courage to spar? The young man pointed at Tianyi and said very domineeringly. Xiao Yan was just an ordinary early star emperor, in his eyes, like an ant without any threat. When Xiao Yan heard the young man's words, there was a hint of displeasure in his eyes, but he didn't show any fear. He looked at the arrogant young man in front of him, and his blood began to boil. He had been fighting for a long time, and he hadn't fought to his heart's content. Xiao Yan also wanted to try his decades of cultivation on the Duki continent, to see what level he had reached, and what kind of strength he was in the middle stage of the one-star emperor. In an instant, Xiao Yan's heart ignited a desire for battle, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, nodding. The young man laughed heartily and said, "You are such an arrogant kid. If you dare to be so reckless in the early stage of the one-star Dou Emperor, then let me show you what it means to be in the middle stage of the one-star Dou Emperor." Xiao Yan smiled, shrugged, spread out his hand, and said in confusion, "But it seems that the monument says that this place prohibits fighting, right? It's not possible here. Can we say it's even worse than the test room?" The young man glanced at Xiao Yan and said, "If you're capable, come with me." His figure then swept away towards the distance. Xiao Yan naturally didn't want to fall behind and followed at an extremely fast pace. Xiao Yan's extraordinary body was incomparable to that of an ordinary Doudi. In an instant, Xiao Yan caught up with the young man, and his eyes suddenly flashed with surprise. His face turned cold and he quickly flew away. Xiao Yan had to closely follow the young man. He didn't know how to get to the testing ground. Seeing Xiao Yan in a disadvantageous position, a hint of pride flashed on the young man's face. If he wanted to know that Xiao Yan had not used all his strength, he might not be able to feel proud anymore. A huge competition field appeared in front of Xiao Yan, and both sides landed. They immediately registered and arrived at the center of the competition field, where the battle was about to break out. Call out. Chapter 9. Tianming Valley, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The overwhelming pressure suddenly came, making the surrounding air seem to have been drained, making it difficult for people to breathe. The young man's face flashed with a hint of sneer, and he said coldly, "Kid, should I let you? Don't pretend to be forced, you'll be struck by lightning if you pretend to be forced." Faced with the young man's sneer, Xiao Yan gently said, causing the young man to feel a bit embarrassed, and a hint of anger surged on his face. You seek death on your own, then no wonder I am." The young man was also slightly angry at Xiao Yan's words. When did he receive such anger? A sinister aura suddenly emanated from his eyebrows and eyes. After Xiong Yuan finished guiding him, he found that Xiao Yan was no longer by his side, but Xiao Yan's breath naturally couldn't escape Xiong Yuan's pursuit. "How did you go to the competition venue?" "I'm afraid it's not a good thing." Xiong Yuan was afraid that Xiao Yan might have an accident and quickly flew towards the direction of the competition venue. "The body of Emperor Yan." Xiao Yan shouted loudly, and his body suddenly expanded into a giant with countless fire dragons surrounding him, looking quite strange. Wu Yong did not fall behind either. He released his Doudi body and with a slight movement, his big palm came roaring with the sound of breaking wind. Xiao Yan didn't dodge as he looked at the roaring big palm, but directly punched it. Bang! With a muffled sound, the surrounding air suddenly felt a visible force, and the two towering figures stepped back a few steps. Xiao Yan smiled at the corner of his mouth. "What? Impossible." Wu Yong's face was surprised. Wu Yong was not surprised. Xiao Yan was just in the early days of the Star Dou Emperor, and he was able to confront his mid-stage strength head-on. If this were to be spread, his face would be ruined. The average one-star emperor in the middle stage is not his opponent, let alone the guy in front of him who is full of anger is just an early one-star emperor. Watching Xiao Yan surrounded by countless fiery dragons all over his body, Wu Yong couldn't help but feel a hint of fear in his heart. De Tian Zao Hua Palm. Xiao Yan let out a loud shout, and his palm instantly expanded several times. The fire dragon condensed in his palm, and a huge palm print fiercely pounced towards Wu Yong. Wu Yong's face changed slightly, and a 10,000 zhang long spear suddenly appeared in his hand. At the same time, he shouted urgently, "Emperor's Disease Spear." A huge spear shadow suddenly flashed by, and two energies collided. Xiao Yan's heavenly creation palm immediately collapsed. Wu Yong's face immediately surged with a sense of pride. After defeating Xiao Yan's attack, he waved his long spear and stabbed him directly. Suddenly, a colorful giant ruler appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Ding! With a crisp sound of impact, Wu Yong's figure was suddenly shaken back a few steps, his face cold as he looked at the weapon suddenly appearing in Xiao Yan's hand. Stop! A loud shout echoed behind the two of them, and Wu Yong's body couldn't help but tremble. It was Xiong Yuan's voice. Wu Yong, what are you doing? Stop it now. Xiong Yuan's face was very ugly. If Xiao Yan had any mistakes, he couldn't explain them to Emperor Ming. Wu Yong saw Xiong Yuan's face full of anger and immediately lowered his head. His strength was still 108,000 miles behind Xiong Yuan's, and he immediately dared not move. At this moment, Xiao Yan smiled and said, "Hee, brother Xiong Yuan, this senior brother is just sparring with me and has no intention of hurting me. Please don't blame him, brother Xiong Yuan." Listening to Xiao Yan's words, Wu Yong blushed a bit. He didn't expect that in the end, Xiao Yan would plead for him, even though he had been so unreasonable at the beginning. "Humph, Xiao Yan, you don't have to speak up for him. I know this kid's personality very well," Xiong Yuan snorted coldly and said, then looked at Wu Yong with his head buried low and shouted angrily, "Wu Yong, do you know he's from the Shao clan?" Chapter 10 Tianming Valley, 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah! The people of the Shao clan trembled with fear when they heard these words. Even their ancestors dared not offend the Shao clan. If Xiao Yan really blamed him, even the Ming Emperor might not be able to protect him. "Humph, fortunately brother Xiao Yan didn't blame you, otherwise you wouldn't be able to stand here and talk to me. However, you still have to suffer some punishment. Go to the Demon Valley and be punished for a year." The Demon Valley was opened up by the disciples of Tianming Valley who specifically punish those who violate discipline. There are countless monsters, but they are all virtual and will suffer a lot. Wu never dared to speak, so he nodded and regained himself. "Brother Xiong Yuan, let's just forget about it. It's just a regular sparring, there's no need to punish this senior brother, right?" Xiao Yan also regained his composure, guessing that Xiong Yuan's Demon Valley might not be a good place, shaking his head and saying. Xiong Yuan glanced at Wu Yong with his head drooping, sighed, and let Wu Yong leave on his own. He didn't expect such a thing to happen after he left for a while. If Xiao Yan had been injured just now, how could he explain it to Emperor Ming? Old Xiao was waiting in the valley, shaking his head and giving a bitter smile. "Brother Xiao Yan, it's okay. Since you've seen this competition, I'll take you to the Doudi Palace and the promotion hall next." Xiong Yuan said, this time he dare not leave Xiao Yan. There are many domineering people in this valley, and coupled with Xiao Yan's early aura as the one-star emperor, it will naturally cause a lot of trouble. After Xiong Yuan and Xiao Yan finished seeing the scenic spots in the valley, the sky gradually got late. This is Xiao Yan's first day on the Doudi continent, and this day has given him a desire that he has not had in many years, which is to improve his strength as soon as possible. The moon is like a silver plate, and the sky is full of stars. In the towering starry platform, Xiao Yan lay at the highest point, thinking about the battle that had happened today. He raised his hand with a hint of vicissitudes, just like a decade ago. His gaze penetrated through the gaps between his fingers, gazing up at the huge silver moon in the sky. Sigh. Xiao Yan sighed lightly as he remembered the battle this afternoon. He felt that there seemed to be a special force suppressing his own power in this world. What kind of force was this? The desire for strength suddenly surged back into Xiao Yan's heart. Xiao Yan lazily withdrew his palms and rested his hands behind his head. Today's farewell made Xiao Yan feel a bit dazed in Xiao Yan's heart. How could he be willing to let go of the continent that had given him growth? Thinking about how long the road was still waiting for him, he felt both excited and worried. He was afraid that he would not know when he would be able to return. He couldn't help but think of those charming faces, beautiful bodies, and his group of little brats a bit lonely. "Hey, brother, what are you thinking?" This startled Xiao Yan. "Isn't this Xiong Yuan?" Xiong Yuan also lay down like Xiao Yan, looking up at the stars in the sky. Xiao Yan sighed lightly and said, "What else can you think of? Of course, you're homesick. Can you say you're not homesick?" Xiong Yuan smiled slightly and then shook his head. "I don't miss home because I don't have a home. Only here is my home. I am an abandoned member of the family, so why should I miss you? By the way, brother, I tell you, you can't return to the Duki continent when you come here." Upon hearing these words, Xiao Yan was immediately startled and jumped up from the ground. Emperor Ming had not told him about this matter and immediately exclaimed in surprise, "No, I can't go back. Isn't that why I won't see my family again?" Xiong Yuan only smiled slightly as he looked at Xiao Yan's surprised expression and said, "Actually, it's not impossible, it's just that no one has been able to do it yet." Upon hearing these words, Xiao Yan immediately let go of the stone in his heart. At least there was a way. Xiao Yan sighed and asked, "I don't know what method it is. Please make sure to inform me, senior." Xiong Yuan's expression softened and he smiled. "Actually, this method is very simple. That is to surpass the Dou Emperor. It's easy to say anything from now on, but alas, you also know that for millions of years, only one person has surpassed the Dou Emperor and created this space. The difficulty is unimaginable." Xiao Yan felt a flutter in his heart and said, "It's over." He had learned from the information given to him by Emperor Ming that it was so difficult to surpass Emperor Dou, not to mention how difficult it was. Time alone made Xiao Yan unable to accept it. It would take 1,000 years to upgrade from 1 star to 2 stars, 4,000 years to upgrade from 2 stars to 3 stars, and 10,000 years to upgrade from 3 stars to 4 stars. After 4 stars, it would be completely impossible to surpass Emperor Dou. It all depends on fate. How much time would it take to ascend to 9 stars? Even more anxious about surpassing the Dou Emperor, at that time, I'm afraid my own relatives may not exist, right? Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's heart was filled with sadness and silence. He thought that he might never see his own family again. Xiao Yan couldn't calm down and traveled from Earth to the Duki continent. With that family, he said he would never see them again. Xiao Yan felt extremely sad. If he had known this, why would he have been promoted to the position of Emperor of Labor?